You are watching Omnis Protocol. I am Charles, also known as Omnis, and I have another Star Wars Shatterpoint Battle Report coming to you from the Las Vegas Opens Grand Tournament. This is from the Swiss rounds. I think I have a really interesting matchup that recorded here. So it's going to be Richie playing Spectre, which is, what played in the finals earlier this year in January. So we know Spectre is quite good. But then we have Nick, also known as Nesquik, who is playing Riff and Mando. If you haven't heard of Nick also just recently won a GT, the Smite Club Open, and now he is at LVO trying just something a little bit different. But we're all really excited about Riff games. And so overall, I just think this is going to be a really interesting matchup. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, that is the game that I want for sure. So Nick has Riff with Gar Saxon and Weequay Pirates with Mando, Bo-Katan, and the Covert Mandalorians. This is very interesting. Not a lot of people like the Coverts without armor because they have a lot of abilities that end up costing force. And so like their average turn can go up by 3 force when they get wounded. But they're still one of the stronger supports in the game. And so as long as you can keep those force costs in check, there's a lot of potential there. And I'm a fan of Weequay Pirates, and I think Riff in general does some really strong things. Now, what's interesting over here from the Spectre side is they have not chosen to run Rebel Commandos. It is Hera with Callus and Chopper, and then Kanan with Ezra and Zeb. So it is full Spectre. So I'm really excited to dig into this game. And as always, I want to thank the players for allowing me to record them. It is a privilege, and I appreciate the fact that they were all okay with this because I think it's really important to get these videos out to the community. But with all that said, let's dig right into the game. All right, it looks like this game is being played on Sabotage. Priority looks like it's for Nick. Remember the white art on the card should point towards the player who has priority to start. All right, it is the bonus dash is the Shatterpoint effect. Nick is revealing Bo-Katan. All right. I think this is a totally solid start for Nick here. You know that you can definitely go get on a point. Bo-Katan is not the easiest character to dislodge, and you can also put a little bit of additional pressure. Looks like he's trying to dash forward Mando, which I really, really like this choice here. Obviously, there's a lot of decent options, and Riff wouldn't be a bad one, but I think it's really powerful that this sets up Mando to either move onto the point in the case of a wound and getting the revenge trigger. It also opens up Mando now where he could potentially threaten a back point. So I like this. I like that play a lot. That is definitely what I would most likely be choosing. So great pick there. So move action now is doing a take cover. Interesting here. I would have thought you probably could have left the move action to be in a position where could get the free focus action and just take a free dash instead of spending the force. But let's see what this is, if he had something else in mind there. Okay. Here they're just kind of doing a little bit of terrain chat here. Yeah, looks like that's ending the turn. Overall, very solid placement for Bo-Katan. I think I just would have really liked to see her walk, stay within range 2 of Mando, get the free focus action, which generates a free dash, and then hunker kind of into that position. I think that would have all been possible, and I think that would have conserved a force. So overall, good positioning. I just think that probably could have been done with one less force. But there is just a possibility that getting that hunker in the middle and then jumping just allowed for some precise placement that was really strong. always a little hard to tell when you just have one angle to look at. All right. Here we just had Nick trying to make sure that the objectives are accurately marked because Spectre did take control of both of those. So, all right. So here there's just kind of reviewing some of the basics and verifying that like Callus can move past that point. He is already in control of it, which is something that people forget about somewhat regularly. And so here Callus is getting a free dash towards an enemy. So free dash, there's plenty of enemies to choose from easily within the right angle. That is not normally a situation where someone would bother to declare like the specific one because there's a lot of ones. Here he was like, oh yeah, I did have to declare, but it's pretty clear he's choosing the Spectre side. There are some lists where you, even on Rebels, you might want to have him on the spy side, is certainly possible. But in this particular list, it's pretty obvious that he wants to be Spectre. All right, so he is on the point. He still has an action. I'm not sure if he's within range 5. So here they were actually just talking a little bit about some overall art in the game and like how the trackers look and models look. Just some good camaraderie between players, which I always appreciate. And Nick's like, hey, have you considered going to Adepticon? You probably should do that too. So general community hype. So here he goes ahead and hunkers against the wall. So it looks like he's going to end up scoring 3 here. Just a little rule review between the players here. And yep. So it looks like they're kind of getting all that clarified between them. Just make sure everyone's on the same page. Looks like Richie is going to score 3. And now it is back to Nick. Nick pulls the Weekway Pirates. I think this is pretty much perfect for Nick because he's already controlling the one with Bo-Katan and there's only one body on the point. Weekway kind of guarantee that they can take that point from Callus, and he's far enough forward that there's a very reasonable chance that those 2 pirates can both get into melee, and that will allow him to gang up, maybe even get a wound here, which could be a big deal. And Kanan's not really in a great spot to threaten them because Kanan is on the opposite side of the table as Callus. This kind of leaves him in a solid spot where all he's really going to get out of it is a jump. And so this is the kind of opportunity that you look for to get a wound versus Spectre, where you're not going to suffer, much in the way of consequences for it. So what he's declaring here is he's climbing up and then landing on that mid-level elevation and using the ladder to go down to get some extra movement. And then that guy just climbs forward. So that leaves both of them in melee. And Nick here is just being, an extra clear, concise opponent. And you're like, hey, these guys do a lot of climbing, but I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that they do have the ability to climb while engaged, which is not something that most characters can do. All right. So let's see here. So I fully suspect 2 melee attacks here. Because of Pack Hunter, they're going to be rolling 8 dice. And if you haven't played against Weequay before, they are definitely the sort of characters that can spike, or like not even spike necessarily, but just like couple of solid rolls, and maybe like one, if you're got just some mediocre defense rolls, Weequay can push through 8 or 9 damage. It is not crazy for them. And so I would not be surprised if we get an early wound here. This is definitely where, if you get used to playing against Cassian Kanan, where there can potentially be a full move and then a jump and an attack, having to just go back to like, oh, he just is jumping from his deployment. I'm not too worried about that. Oh, bad defense roll from Callus to start. 4 fails and an expertise. Yeah. So here he's discussing utilizing his rerolls to improve the block. So here, there's no modification coming from the Weequay. So he's just going to go ahead and show what will be on the, what will be his total dice compilation before he decides to reroll. All right, so he's just going, hey, I've got 4 hits, a crit, and a damage in the pool. Now you can do your rerolls. Good reroll really comes out helping him. 2 blocks and an expertise. And so he ends up with 4 blocks. So it's just going to be a crit and a damage. So it just ends up being 2 damage and a shove after the expertise damage. Solid reroll there. That's one of my favorite things about playing Callus, is just how much you can tilt those situations. Like, his decision to utilize that reroll may literally be the difference between Callus getting wounded and not getting wounded. All right. Because he resolved the shove, he is losing Pack Hunter. Over here, looks like we have 3 expertise and a block and a fail on the defense roll. Offense roll is just going to be 4 hits after expertise. So just going to end up being a damage and a shove. So kind of a pretty light Weequay activation. But the advantage here is you're at least not giving any extra movement to Kanan, and it means you at least have Callus off of that point. And so it can be a little bit difficult for Spectre to body in this particular case, right? To be able to get, multiple bodies on that point and shove one off is going to be a little bit challenging for him. But now he's going to go ahead and resolve blood in the water, which is Riff's jump and attack. Starts off free, and it's not going to accomplish much here, but it just gets him forward. And so it's really important, if you're playing Riff, don't forget about that initial jump so that you can kind of get Riff into a better position so he's threatening later on. Good overall score for Nick. He ends up scoring 4 points there. So I feel like he's got Riff up the board, he's got Mando, up the board a bit, and he's controlling 4 objectives. I'm sure he's feeling absolutely great about this positioning in this moment. Ezra's definitely a solid pull here. This means that he can at least guarantee take a point and potentially get some damage on Bo-Katan to soften her up for later. Because I think he can totally afford a walk, jump, and and take a lightsaber to Bo-Katan. He's not going to kill her, probably won't even shove her off the point because of steadfast, but just get any damage softened up. Bo-Katan is definitely a character that you would like to get wounded. Even though, she has solid defensive expertise and protection, she will absolutely get wounded, and you want to be threatening her. You want situations where Kanan's revenge attack could potentially get wounds and such. And so, now he's looking at a jump. Here, I definitely wouldn't jump right away. It looks like he is already in melee range of Bo-Katan. So here, I would definitely just take the attack and see if I can shove myself onto the point and maybe save that force for rerolls instead. Looks like he is spending the force to jump, though. Yeah. This is also a slightly worse spot for shove angles. I think I would have gone more base to base with Bo-Katan, so that I had kind of a straight shot along that piece of terrain. So I think there's just just a little bit of could be using force slightly more optimally on both sides here. But I believe this is the first round of the game, so people are kind of in warm-up mode. Yep. So it looks like on the block roll, it's a block, an expertise, and 2 fails, which isn't too bad. That's still 3 blocks for Bo-Katan. So it looks like it's going to be 2 damage or 2 crits, a damage, and a jump. See? And he hits the jump on his tree. Yeah, all 3 of the hits are blocked. Yep. So yeah, it is 2 crits, damage, jump. Yeah, so he definitely could have saved a force. He was hitting the jump anyway. He could have chosen his positioning. So it sounds like 3 damage pin. So it would be 4 with the bonus damage, reduced to 3 with protection. And puts a pin on her. Overall, I think that's solid. You definitely don't need any... he doesn't really need to try to be shoving since he had already jumped into position and then kind of moved back a little bit. Because Ezra is a tiebreaker, he does take control of that objective and score 3. Certainly not a bad play, but I would be feeling like I was slightly behind in the Spectre's position at the moment. They really need a big play here, and I'm just not sure exactly how they're going to create it. Not having Rebel Commandos here is definitely something that's going to probably hurt the Spectre team overall, because he kind of just needs a big play. And so looks like Nick he drew Gar Saxon, but Gar Saxon's not on the optimal side of the table for going after Ezra. And so what he elects to do here is to just go ahead and reserve, and he pulls coverts. Now, I think there's a world where Gar Saxon moving Mando up could kind of guarantee take that point, and then maybe Gar Saxon even goes after a back point is certainly possible. But I definitely don't hate this play either. This is, again, a safe moment to go for a wound because Kanan is not in a great position to be making an attack. So just having them walk forward, get their free focus, and now they could both take a shot at Ezra. And so that's what it looks like they're doing now. There's choosing sharpshooter. And so I think he may be trying to take this opportunity, see if he can get the wound on Ezra now before Kanan gets up the board. Because between, a list like this can often Shatterpoint Kanan. I mean, Shatterpointing Hera is great too, but I think in this early round, getting Kanan further up the board could be a big deal. Yeah, I also would have liked Ezra to stay a little bit further back, because I think there would have been a world where he could have use expertise dash to move away and try to block line of sight for the other one, and that's going to be a little harder to do now. So 4 blocks, only 2 crits go down, and then he gets a dash. So 3 damage and strain on Ezra. Oh, it sounds like he's changing his mind. So it's 2 damage, a shove, and a strain. So here he's just resolving the shove. I'm not sure he's really going to get that much onto Ezra, but he probably is doing this because he wants the little extra movement for his covert, which I think the covert jumps would probably get him onto the point, but if you can save a force or if you can just guarantee you get there, that can sometimes be more important than 1 damage. So definitely not a play that I dislike there. I think whenever you can set yourself up for that stuff, that's a huge deal. All right. So he is electing to dash away. Nope. So he's realizing, yes, he is strained, so he is not going to take the dash. Yep. Other covert is making the attack now. Looks like Ezra is going to have 4 blocks. All right, so no damage goes through because it looks like he just had hits, no crits. So here they're go ahead and resolve the force jumps so he can gang up on that point. So here he's realizing he realized because he moved on to resolving the jump, he missed his blood in the water trigger from Riff. That triggers at the end of the combat action. And it sounded like Richie was totally like, "Hey, do you want to go ahead and do the thing?" And he's, Nick is just such a clean player. He's like, "Nah, I missed it," and he wanted to stick it out with forgetting that trigger. As someone who plays Cad Bane a lot, it's really important to remember that before you move on. So, all right, looks like Hera comes up. So, is he going to be able to make a big enough play with Hera to swing things? It looks like he's electing to give a full advance to, looks like Zeb. And let's see here. If I were activating for Hera, this is a tough spot. There's a world where I would consider reserving Hera here. Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to take a point with this particular activation. Now, obviously, there's a risk that whether is Zeb Zeb would probably have to wound the coverts to take that point over there because Mando can just walk on afterwards. Which with Ezra and Zeb, he would get to take the point, which is not fantastic. On the other side, if he gets Chopper probably not wounding the weak ways. So either of those cards would be a little bit rough. But if he can get Kanan or Shatterpoint, he could be making a big play here. So it looks like Hera's taking an attack on the weak ways. I probably would have at least moved Callus onto that point so that there was a world where if she can shove one of the weak ways off the point, which I don't remember off the top of my head for her tree, they are steadfast, so it might be tough. Looks like they only block 1, so she goes 4 down. Solid roll overall for him. I can't see in the corner whether that's 2 fails. If it was 2 fails, I might consider the Callus reroll here and see if I can just really push some effect through. But since he didn't elect to move Callus onto that point, he's not taking a point this turn. And so he may just want to save it for struggle 2, which if you just look at the score tracker, it doesn't feel like it's necessarily like leaning a big direction. But in this particular mission, when you're already behind scoring by at least 1, that putting into a position where it's going to hit 0 at the end of your turn and then both sides gain a momentum, your opponent is immediately starting off scoring 4 and has a lot of models that could potentially threaten the back points. That just, if you're just examining the board state in this moment, I would say that Riff and Mando, Nick's team, is heavily advantaged. So here what's being asked is whether or not using the ability on Callus would give him an injured token. And they're just trying to double check it. I believe with not having like the exact wording in front of me, I think that ability does specifically give them an injured token either way, but they're calling over a judge so they can kind of just double check that. This is probably Aubrey they're pulling over. Shout out to all the lovely nerds that are helping judge and run LVO. That's, it is often a very, very thankless job. And so always happy to shout them out whenever I can. Looks like, I think they've got the judge over there now and are kind of explaining what's going on. Let me see if I can take a look at the card to discuss. I don't have a ton of games with Hera myself. I think she's really solid and I've enjoyed the games that I have played her in and definitely would like to play her more, but I would not consider myself a Hera expert at all. So the wording on We Will Not Stand Down, which is 2 force, choose an allied Rebel Alliance unit and an active objective. Chosen character may remove 1 wounded token, all damage, and 1 condition from itself. Then the chosen unit gains an injured token and 1 character in the chosen unit may reposition. So I would definitely agree that that it would put an injured token on Callus if she did that. So there was 2 shoves. So the first one, he's resolving just the shove for her because Steadfast stops the weak way from moving. Now go ahead and resolving the second shove. Doesn't look like it's getting him off the point. All right, so it does get Hera up onto the point. I'm often very impressed. Her offensive expertise is very solid. She can get good damage through, but that doesn't end up flipping a point. So again, this means that Rich is just scoring 2. So they both gain a momentum because it ended on 0. Revealed Mando. Gar Saxon is in reserve, so it is definitely has to be a Mando activation. Okay, so it looks like he's going to go for the wound on Ezra now. So I think there's 2 very valid strategies here. I think, so he's focusing and shooting Ezra, and which I think is totally fine. But in this moment, there's definitely a part of me that would potentially not focus, shoot at Ezra, just kind of go for some shoves and try to get myself all the way back there to take that back point in front of Kanan. So he did roll the disintegration for 5 damage. And so it is not going to kill him. It leaves him on 1. So again, he doesn't want to dash. Okay. He's just conserving force and sitting back on that point. I think that's a totally fine activation. I think there's certainly a world where I would have liked to not focus, gone for shoves, and see if I could have gone back and tried to like take that point, because nobody's on that back point in front of Kanan at the moment. But it may just be, you know, keeping Mando in the back, holding down a point, is very reasonable. Let's see. Well, I guess the challenging part there, he's got one force left, and he still hasn't activated Riff. He hasn't activated Gar Saxon, and then I think Shatterpoint is in there as well. So he's probably just being conservative with force and thinking about like, all right, I've got to conserve a force somewhere. Scoring 4 he's happy with. I don't think that's a wrong play by any means. He has a lot more Riff experience than I do, and so he's probably thinking in this moment about protecting that last force instead of going to 0, because if you go to 0 and you don't end up locking down the struggle, then you can be in a really tough spot. All right, so he Shatterpoints. Looks like he's Shatterpointing Hera here. Which is going to heal up Callus, which is solid. Looks like he still needs to evolve. Okay, there we go. He's remembering he gets the full advance on someone. Okay, so what they're thinking about now is that Hera would like to shoot the one that's possible to get off the point, but she is currently engaged by that one pirate. So what I think I would do here is I would advance Callus onto the point. I would hunker her backwards, just take one shove off the point to get her out of melee, and then shoot at the weak way and shove herself back on. Oh, what they're realizing is forgot about the Shatterpoint bonus dash. All right, so electing to use the Shatterpoint dash to just get her in melee of that guy. Now we're resolving Phoenix Leader, which I believe is going to move Callus onto the point. I like it. Now this does mean that she could potentially focus and punch the weak way. Yep, so he is declaring the focus. Yeah. Mando focuses and attacks, and then Hera focuses and attacks. So 4 defense dice for the weak way pirate. Looks like she's got 7 after the focus. So it looks like 3 blocks for weak way. Looks like she's going to go 3 down. Does that hit the double shove? So I wish I knew her tree well enough to immediately be like, oh, she hits the double shove or not. So it looks like 2 damage. Yeah, she does have 2 shoves there, so they're resolving one of them. And then I believe there's some heals that don't matter. Okay. So Rich does score 3 but it ends on 1. So that does mean that he gets a momentum. Now we have a Riff activation. There's some interesting options here. He could just choose to lay into Callus or even Hera. He needs to shove someone off if he wants to take that point. But there's a world where he could potentially end up repositioning to the ladder in the back if things don't go well and try to take that point from Chopper. All right, here they're talking about, like, where is Riff from exactly? And if you aren't familiar with Riff Tamsin, he is in Clone Wars. I forget which season it is, but it's a 2 or 3 episode arc where the king of Monkal dies or is assassinated, I believe, by Riff, and it leads to a little bit of a civil war thing going on. And I believe Kit and Anakin go to help out and try to smooth things over. So he walks. He spends for the jump that gives him additional damage. He's making an attack on Hera now. Because Hera is probably the easiest for him to shove off. It looks like she's in a position where a single shove would get her off the point. I would have liked the positioning on Callus and her to be just a little tighter on that objective, to potentially make it so one shove wouldn't get her off, but I don't think it's hugely impactful in this moment. So it looks like 2 blocks on defense. Rich is electing to use Callus's rerolls. They share Rebel Alliance and Spectre, so he can reroll 2. 3 blocks and an expertise. That's as good as you could ask for. I think that's going to be 4 blocks and a heal. So that's just going to be 2 down the tree plus 2 damage for Riff. So 4 damage, strain, shove is going to be the total applied, and then she will get a heal, which I imagine is going to remove that strain. So here, Rich is just helping Nick, so he can kind of verify the shove angle, which he is electing to do. Oh, both of them there kind of block the camera light. All right, they got comfortable with that particular angle. Now he's just kind of gently moving the measurement tool away. He doesn't want to accidentally shove her farther than she should be. All right, she is off the point. Yeah, and that's where I think Rich definitely could have positioned so that Hera was just a little bit closer to the point. And I think that's just something that comes with, repetition, where you realize kind of how close you need to be to the point to make it so one shove won't get you off the point. So that is a score of 4. So this struggle definitely seems to be leaning in favor of the scoundrel team. Not that there aren't some scoundrels over there on Kanan's side, but should be the Mando side? Mercenaries. He's got such a hodgepodge. Maybe we'll just it's Riff's team is what it is. All right, so he reveals Kanan. This is definitely something where we probably would have liked Kanan to come up sooner, so he could have made a big play to potentially swing the struggle before it had gotten this far. All right, again, because Ezra has 1 health left and is strained, there's really not a whole lot of movement that's going to be happening for him. There's a world where, because he did elect to advance Zeb earlier, there's a world where he could have chosen here to dash Zeb onto that point. It becomes a little bit of a cluster, but then I think there's a world where Kanan just needs to get onto the point and is going to take it. So could even potentially, let's see, there's a little bit of damage on Bo-Katan. I certainly wouldn't mind him moving Zeb onto the point, dashing Kanan, seeing if he can shoot at Bo-Katan, see if he can finish her off, even if Kanan moves onto the point. Here I also, since he's going for attacks from above and he's used, I can't tell whether he ended up using his move action or not to get to that last objective, or if he got there with the 2 dashes. But I would have probably positioned on the other side of that terrain so that after I shoot her, that I could potentially shove myself down. So looks like we're about to resolve the Kanan attack now. I think he's actually attacking a covert Mandalorian. So he is declaring now that he had not taken a move action. It was just the double dash. So he's deciding now whether he wants to focus. Yep. He wants to keep his move action. He sees some cool plays. I definitely like that. I would hold back the move. Yeah, Mando's already gone. If you're not going for a wound here, I would definitely like to soften up the coverts now, and would love the full movement from there. Take that point by force pushing Mando off. I like that quite a bit. Gar Saxon could also have a hard time getting Kanan off the point. So let's see if that's what he ends up going for. So 5 damage, shove, pin. Shove doesn't really matter here. He might elect to try to utilize it to shove himself. I feel like Nick might have forgotten about his, or maybe he just hit 2 shoves and he was just declaring that a single shove was going to go through. Okay, so yeah, I believe Kanan got 2 shoves on that one, and they were just resolving the single shove. All right. Also, he is not contesting the point, so he does not have protection for the damage resolution. Yeah. What I would have liked to see here is resolve the shove to fall off the terrain and then walk towards Mando. Yeah. Here, I think Nick is, trying to be courteous here. You normally can't declare, you can't check an angle for, for a force push before you actually declare that you're doing it. But I think Nick is just trying to be helpful for helping him envision what he can and cannot do before he declares it. But just for you people who are watching, you can't actually be using the tool to check an angle until you've actually declared that you're doing the thing. Yeah. But I think they're coming to the agreement that it's probably not shoving him away. So I'm really hoping he sees the walk force push Mando. That's what I wanted. I like that. Like I said, the only thing that I think would have made that slightly better is if he shoved himself down after the shove that moved the Mando, just so that he could be kind of like right on top of that objective. I think that would have been perfect. Oh, he's electing not to force push Mando. I really liked the movement there. I just would have really wanted the force push Mando away. Because there's not that many cards left. You'd be down to one force. I think it's Zeb and Chopper in the deck. I think you'd be fine with one force there. Okay. Shatterpoint Weequay Pirates. I think this is almost certainly going to end the struggle. Yeah. Definitely wanted the force push there. I think sometimes people are a little nervous about, spending 2 force on something. So with the Shatterpoint, Nick is electing to activate the Weequay Pirates. He's electing so he's spending the force for I think he was out of force. So I think he is just taking his movement action. Yeah, that's just a movement action. All right, now they're declaring a combat action. So it looks like melee attack on Callus, no gang dice, because he moved the Weequay into the middle. Yeah. All right. Looks like 2 blocks and an expertise for Callus, which will be 3 blocks. So 5 hits and a crit. But looks like you're doing rerolls. So, man, rerolls are really paying off for Rich there. That ends up adding 2 more blocks in there. So he has 5 blocks on 5 dice, basically. So only ends up going 1 down, which will be 1 damage and a shove. Yeah, I love that about Callus. I love the reroll mechanics, and so that's probably why he didn't force push. Is that he loves the reroll mechanics and how that can manipulate the board. And yeah, that's a big deal. I can't lie; it's one of the reasons I like Kanan Han so much. So now he's got a range attack from the pirate in the middle. And what I'm liking here is what's probably going to happen is you either can have Riff try to beat up on one of these characters that's getting softened up, or he can just take the free jump and he can go take that back point and be in control of another objective. I think either are going to be valid in this moment. I think my gut is take the objective, but we'll see what he does. Yep. Okay. So what they're just discussing here is that Hera does hand out that Hera does grant cover 1. Okay. So yeah, they're just discussing the thing. I think what comes up sometimes is people believe that Hera's ability only kicks in if they have a hunker token, but it's just cover from terrain requires the hunker token. Abilities like hers and Chewbacca's will always add that additional die if it's a ranged attack, unless they ignore cover. So 4 blocks and a heal. So no damage and a heal. So he does get to resolve Blood in the Water from Riff. I definitely think with both the attacks going kind of light, yeah, he's going after the ladder. Perfect. That's what I wanted to see. Now, not that it matters a ton, but I think you do try to block the ladder as best you can. So overall, I think that was solid positioning. Okay. Yeah, he's just explaining that he doesn't get the attack because he's not in melee range of Hera. So what's really significant here in this moment is that going into the second struggle, he has characters on. He is controlling 5 out of the 7 points because Gar Saxon is still on a point. The only ones he's not is there's a point that nobody's controlling that's in front of Rich, kind of upper right, and then Mando and Kanan are tying a point at the moment. And so here they've chosen, so it is going to be that point that nobody's on. And it's going to be the point that Gar Saxon is on, and the point where the weak ways are holding it next to Callus and Hera. Man, that poor little piece of train thing that I said over there in case they got Never Tell Me the Odds is just proving to be an obnoxious obstacle for them. I'm sure Nick was cursing my name. Probably not. Nick's way too nice of a guy for that. Okay. Expertise for the priority roll. So that's going to be the one where the Weequay Pirates are. Not too bad. But the tough spot here for Rich is that I believe his remaining 2 cards are Zeb and Chopper. But maybe Zeb can get over there. I mean, the Weequay are softened up. There's probably a world where Zeb gets over there and can knock out the Weequay. And it's actually a good time to get a wound because, well, Mando could get over there to reinforce the point for Gar Saxon, which is helpful. So it's not a moment where there's 0 benefit to the revenge trigger. It's hard to tell 100%, but I think there's a world where Mando's reposition will get him at least onto that objective. So the next activation with Gar, he could potentially leave the point to go somewhere else. Well, I guess worst case scenario is Gar could jump Mando the rest of the distance. So if he does go for the wound on the Weequay Pirates, there is some good plays that Nick has in front of him. But let's see where he's going to go. Zeb is reasonably fast. There's a non-zero chance that he could take the point from Gar. But the problem is that he's really just taking 1 point with Zeb. Yeah, that's certainly not my preferred play there. I mean, it's going to get him a point. I think this would definitely been a moment where I potentially spend my last 2 force and try to go take the priority objective. So he's walking over to the ladder, goes up, and now he's taking a shot at Riff. So after expertise, it is 4 blocks for Riff. Yeah, so there's no crit mitigation, so it looks like the 2 crits are going to go through. Three damage and a strain going through on Riff. That's certainly not bad. Riff, with all of his reactions, so here it looks like Zeb is going to go ahead and use his ability, spend a force to make another attack. I haven't played Zeb enough. Yep, there's no restriction on it just besides just the same guy. So yeah, just spend a force, and then he gets another attack that is 5 dice. Not usually something great into primaries. So 4 blocks versus 5 hits. Gets 2 more damage for that. So Yeah. So in this particular case, no one takes control of that spot in the middle because it's tied. So I really would have liked to see Zeb just make 2 full movements towards it and try to take the priority objective, because there he just ended up with 1, and I would have been perfectly happy leaving that for Chopper. Yep. All right, so he has to do Gar Saxon. Looks like it is the expertise again, which is where the weak ways are. He elects to jump bow to clear the pin. No. They're just talking about here is like, oh, even though you got the pirates and you got Riff, you still have 4 out of 6 being Mandos. So you get a little bit more extra movement than a lot of the other Riff lists that you see. Like if you play Django in that spot, and Dengar, that sort of thing, which I think are really powerful options. But this provides a little bit of extra movement, which can really be critical in some of these tight games. So I definitely like Nick's list is one of my favorite from this event overall. We actually had some fun and gave away some awards from my podcast for this event, and I was picking my favorite list, and I ended up Nick was in my very, very short list of three lists. He didn't quite make number 1, but very, very good list overall. I thought this was a really cool one. I'm glad I got it on camera. So here, what they're double checking is that now he's like, oh, so I get Hera's additional die, but this is a case where Gar Saxon always ignores cover. So that's hunker cover, that's cover from abilities. So he didn't get a free focus, so wasn't rolling a ton of dice. So just 3 hits and a crit. So it just puts 2 damage out. Just ends up being a score 1, and they both gain a momentum. Chopper's left. Priority is where Zeb already is. And he doesn't have force. Yeah. Here, Rich was just double checking and making sure that that Nick did in fact roll for priority, which he did. We saw it. Okay, so yeah, this is where I think if he had chosen to have Zeb go after the priority point last turn, then there would still be a reasonable play left over here for Chopper, where I think Chopper could have taken cover and potentially walked to an ingress point, or climbed up and taken cover and potentially been on the point. Yeah. And then that would have allowed Chopper to take this back point, and that would have left Rich in a much stronger position. Yeah. There's a world where maybe he full advances and can at least make a ranged attack on the weak way, and if he gets a shove, probably could get himself onto the objective to help Callus gang up on it, which isn't too bad. Which looks like that's probably what he's going for here. I don't think he's going to get into melee, but he does have a range 3 gun, so. Yep, he's going for the range attack. Yeah. Yeah, he's looking at the weak way pirates. Gonna go ahead and range attack. Four dice in the defense roll. I believe it's a 6 dice attack from Chopper. Looks like 3 blocks from the weak way. Yeah, no force left, so no rerolls. Looks like it's going to be 1 down the tree. It's just 2 damage. Yeah, rough spot there that he didn't go far enough down for a shove. Or wait a second, I haven't played Chopper in a bit. Does Chopper have 1 damage and a shove on 1? Yeah, see, I think there, if he had gone 1 damage shove, he probably gets onto the point and takes that objective. I think this is a case where you know, as you grow as a player in Shatterpoint, how you utilize the shoves to get yourself extra movement is a big deal. And I think if you come from other games, it's really easy to lean towards damage initially, but I try to utilize the shove movement as much as possible to help me take control of points. And yeah, I think it's just a case of you know, wanting to get that into your repertoire a little bit more. Yeah. So it looks like immediately pulls Gar Saxon, reserves him again, and then gets Mando. So he's got to do Mando now. So he's going to Clan of 2 first. So he gets the little force push on Kanan, kind of sends him into that ingress point. Now, where is he going to go? I think it's going to be tough for him to get over onto that objective. There's only 3 damage on Callus, so I think... All right, he is going for the range attack on Callus. That's definitely a tough one. There's still 6 health left, and he's going to have rerolls. But if he gets Callus here... but actually, he may just have a shove angle that... Because Callus may only be barely on that point. So, very, very solid play there. 4 fails for poor Callus. He is using the force. I definitely like this here. He gets 3 rerolls. Ends up being 4 blocks overall. So it just ends up being 2 damage. They've had a lot of just like going down the tree 1 step. So that ends up taking it back to 0. They both gain a momentum. All right. Hera is revealed for Rich. This definitely has potential. This point in the game, there's a lot of work that Hera can do. There's potential to just get Chopper onto the point, which is nice. There's maybe even a world where Chopper can go take the advance and like hit a ladder and reinforce the point with Zeb, and then she takes the point with Callus is certainly possible. Rich was thinking about doing the full advance on Callus, but since that covert has not been wounded yet, despite the fact they're all the way through a shuffle already and the coverts are alive, he is engaged, so it would be just a dash. So, all right, so he does elect to take the advance on Chopper, get Chopper onto that point, so it does mean that Hera is going to help him control that. So, barring something crazy, it definitely seems like he's going to at least be able to score 3 points. I can't recall if they rolled for a priority. Looks like priority is at least marked on the point in the back, so it does look like he'd be able to score 3. Yeah, one of the hard parts over here is that he really wants to get some heals going on Ezra to get Ezra back into the action, but the characters are just not nearby each other. Even Kanan right now looks like he's probably just outside of range 2 of Ezra, so even if a wound happens, he's probably not going to be able to heal Ezra. All right, looks like Hera walks over to Gar Saxon, removes his hunker. Who is getting attacked here? I think she might have chosen... I think Rich has chosen to attack Mando because it's 6 defense dice. Block 3 and crit to fail. So yeah, definitely Mando. All right, so nothing happened on Mando there. But Rich does score 3. It'll be interesting here to see if Nick is going to like truly fight over this mission, or if he wants to just let Rich take it at a certain point. So he does pull coverts for the next card. He spent a force. They're going to go ahead and do jetpack. And so one hits a ladder and then goes up. The other one kind of jetpacks away. I have a feeling these guys are about to go gang up on poor Zeb. He's choosing Impact for their bonus. So that one looked a little weird, I think, because of the angle of the camera, but the players were agreeing that the template goes underneath the terrain. And he wasn't engaged by anyone, so I believe that was a climb. Yeah, they don't have as good of defenses in melee. I think there's a world there where Nick could have positioned just outside of range 2. I suppose the hard part would be is you want them to also get the free focus action, and there isn't anybody else over there. So I was thinking about being a little bit more spread out and then trying to shoot him off, but I don't think they would have had a Mando close enough to facilitate that. So the melee is probably the right play there. So it ends up being 3 blocks and an expertise. Overall, just 3 crits going down the tree. Yeah, so it looks like it's just damage and a strain. So he's electing to... So it was going to be 5 damage and a strain, and he's going to elect to take 4 damage and a strain because he had 2 heals. The other punch. So 4 expertise becomes a crit and a hit. It's a force to reroll 3. I think that might be incorrect. I don't think Zeb's a scoundrel. But I haven't played Zeb enough that sometimes I forget. No, he is a warrior, so it would have just been reroll 2. Not hugely impactful in that moment, but just a little thing to keep track of when you're playing Spectre. All right, and that is also that's also because that is a combat action from a scoundrel support. He gets to use Riff as well. So there's a world where Riff could gang up on that point. There's also, he could just jump down and try to help that point down there to make things a little bit more complicated next turn. That does take put 3 more damage on Riff, taking him to 8 damage. Here they're discussing, it was like Rich was just a little surprised that he was willing to take 3 strain damage just to like get over there, not directly influence a point in the moment, but maybe have something happen later on. All right, so we've got Ezra, who's kind of off in a corner and is strained. So he really has to take a heal action. The priority point remains on that point back by Mando and Gar Saxon. My gut here is probably reserve him. Yep, and that is what he's doing now. All right. Chopper. That's an interesting play for him. I mean, I'm not sure. It's not going to swing a point. So he's spending a force for Mayhem. So here you're just discussing, like, were you trying to be in melee or not? But Nick was saying that he wasn't checking that. So he's going ahead and mayheming into the pirates. I'm not sure the mayhem is worth it here. He gets going to get 2 status effects on the pirates, which certainly isn't bad. Looks like disarm and strain. All right, he's going to go ahead and take his attack on the pirate. For me, when I'm playing Shatterpoint, I really try to think about how can any activation swing a potential point, and I would definitely be thinking here, because Callus is still on the point, and the only problem is I don't know whether or not Riff got on the point or not. Because if he's not, I would have definitely liked trying to send Chopper to see if I can finish off the No, I'm questioning my own thought process because it's just things are getting a little too clustered, where I think if Chopper leaves and like goes and gets a wound on the coverts, then Mando's just going to walk up and take that point. So Chopper does get to kill the weak ways, which gives him a momentum. Now there's a revenge trigger from Mando. What they're realizing here is that Chopper does have an ability that does go first before Mando's trigger. This ability from Chopper doesn't come up very often. I kind of heard him read it, but so Chopper, sometimes you do right. When a character in this unit wounds an enemy unit with an attack after the effect is resolved, this unit may use this ability. Choose an allied Rebel Alliance character within range 2. That character may dash. If they're a Spectre, they may reposition. So all it's doing there is it does allow Callus to move closer to the point, which is solid. I don't think I've ever wounded someone with Chopper, and so I forget about that all the time. And most of the time when I play against him, he's back on a point by himself. He does have 2 points there, so he has 2 characters on that point, so he retains control of it and scores 1. All right, it's the block, so it's the point where the coverts are controlling. The revealed card is Bo-Katan. She does not have any status effects at the moment. She just has some damage on her, which is kind of great because it's really easy for her to generate some heals. So she uses her jump to just position Garsaxon right on top of the objective, making it so you definitely need 2 shoves to get him off the point. Now it looks like Nick has misplaced his dash tool. I don't know if it's just under something. This happens to me almost every time I hang out to play games. So he's just taking a focus action, which gives him 2 heals and a dash. Which takes her down to just 1 damage on her. And then she just goes over to the ingress point just to totally gang up on that point. So your Nick just didn't realize that he was hanging off the edge just a little bit. And so Rich was helping him get adjusted a little bit back. So for a legal final placement. Scores 3. Passes it back to Rich. I think it's Bo-Katan doesn't always go super far down her tree. So sometimes just taking some heals and getting her onto a point and like handing out that bubble can be a big deal. Because now if like Zeb came up again and he kills the coverts, it's not going to get Bo-Katan off the point. Oh, wow. There was like a table, like a legit table bump there. That's always a little nerve-wracking. All right, Shatterpoint comes up for Rich. Sounds like they just called Mission Critical. I do, especially on these longer games, I will generally speed it up by maybe about 10%, just so it doesn't look too fast, but so that it doesn't eat up too much time for people who want to watch some of these longer games. So if it ever seems like the mission critical is being called a little bit soon, it's not that they took too much time in deployment. It's just that I will speed these up just a notch, just to make it a little bit easier to consume. So it looks like Shatterpoint is on Kanan, which I definitely think is a solid play here. I don't think he's rolled for priority, though. Or, no, maybe he has, because it's over on the spot that he already has. I probably just missed it. So, gets a double dash, probably going to make an attack, and I think he probably would love to not have to force push. I think this is a world where he probably could have stayed at range 2, because you're not taking the point unless you shove him off, and gone for the 1 additional range die and hope to go 3 down for the 2 shoves. So just 3 hits, 2 crit. Man, only 5 successes with some rerolled dice is a little rough, but only 2 blocks, so he's going to go 3 down, which is I think what gets him the double shoves. Yeah, 5 damage, 2 shoves. Yeah, I think this is if you're watching this, I would in that situation, I would very much potentially try to stay out of range 2 so that you can get the extra dice on the range attack. Because if you shove twice, you can use those follow-up shoves to be on the point anyway. All right, so he did score 3, and quickly running out of potential momentum there. The priority point is the fail, which is where Kanan is at, which can be a very hard point to take. Riff comes up. Riff would definitely have a hard time taking a point from Kanan. You would have to get a pin to stop the reposition back onto the point, which can be tough. I think he has one on his tree, though. Let me double check. I'm definitely excited about playing more Riff in my future. So his cruelty side does not have a pin. Yeah, he does not have pins anywhere. So, yeah. So unless he just does enough damage to take Kanan down where a strain would kill him, he is not getting Kanan off the point. So he's going after Callus. I definitely agree there. So spend 1 force for death from below. Yep. He's making an attack into Callus. And he does have some bonus damage coming in. And Callus only has 4 health left, so I'm pretty sure this will get a wound and get a force recovery for him. 4 damage, strain, a couple of recovers on himself. So that does get the wound on Callus. So now it's time for a what Nick was double checking there was to make sure that the damage from the jump power was added to the pool, so it would count as the attack doing the wound, which it definitely does, and that was just what he was verifying. So it does mean that Kanan gets his revenge trigger. Looks like Hera is within range 2 of him, so he's going to heal 2 off of Hera. And then he's going to make an attack into Gar Saxon to see if he can finish him off. There's definitely a world where I would have considered jumping forward a little bit if he could stay out of melee of any enemies and take the shot at Riff. Riff only has 3 health left. But Gar Saxon was definitely a very reasonable target there. All right, so there he was just giving himself an additional momentum because of Mission Critical. Expertise is that point on kind of the middle left side of the screen. And Kanan again, not exactly the moment that you want Kanan to come up. But he could potentially move Hera onto the point that he's controlling, and the pirates are already wounded. So I think there's a world where if he just moves Hera onto that point, kills Riff, there is the potential for where Mando goes, which would kind of complicate things. But tough. With Callus wounded, oh no, he's got Chopper there. I feel like there's a world where he should be able to kill Riff, even if Mando triggers, as long as he moves Hera onto the point. That with Chopper there, killing Riff, I think he could score out and win this struggle right here. Actually, you may not even need to because of Mission Critical. But even without Mission Critical, I think there's a play here with killing Riff to take this struggle right now for Rich. I can't tell if he dashed Hera at all, but it does look like he is resolving a dash on Callus. Sorry, on Kanan. Too many K names. So I think he did dash Hera because now he's talking about doing his move action. So he elects to make a melee attack into Riff. So 6 dice for Kanan. Riff is going to roll 4 expertise, which is going to be two blocks and I think some mitigation. So he turns a crit to a success and blocks 2. 4 down. I'm pretty sure that's going to get the wound. So I think that's going to mean that Rich is going to take this struggle. Currently checking which steps down the tree he wants to take. Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of thinking about resolving a shove, but it looks pretty awkward. Seven damage, pin, and a reposition. All right. Just resolving the reposition for Kanan. He needs to gain a momentum here. All right, Nick's go ahead and giving him the momentum. Now it's the Mando revenge trigger. Mando resolving the heal too. Pirates are wounded, but he elects to heal the strain off of them. Come back. Mando's kind of hiding under the train where it's kind of hard to see. This does give a hunker to Gar. He did not move Hera onto that back point, but with Mission Critical, he's still going to take the struggle. All right. This is sabotage, so there's not a whole lot of options. But this is a big deal here because he didn't move Hera backwards and Mando got to take control of that point. That's going to set up this pretty strongly for Nick, where it could have been a really advantageous position for Rich, because it looks like with the 3 objectives that are going to be active, Ezra is by himself on an objective, which is kind of perfect now. And so Mando is controlling the one that's kind of the bottom left side of the screen, and then nobody is on the one in kind of the top left. So, man, if he had elected to move Hera and retain that point, that could have been a really solid spot. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter too much because he had the Garce action in reserve, so he gets to jump Bo-Katan onto that point, which is great. And then Mando's already on the point, and Gar Saxon can come join him and probably spread around a little bit of damage. And it can conserve a force. He's just removing a hunker token there. He goes and takes an advantage. Mandalorians are stronger together, so he gets Sharpshooter 2 and a free focus. He's declaring an attack on Hera. It's going to be 9 dice in the attack roll. Hera does not get the cover die because this is Gar Saxon. Sniper guy does not care about cover at all. She rolls 2 expertise, 2 fails, 1 block. Looks like he rolled 3 expertise, 2 crits, 2 hits, 2 fails. The expertise become 2 crits and a shove. So it's just 3 crits, 2 hits. So he's electing that this is not a great time to use rerolls because she does not have crit mitigation. And so he's already blocking all the hits. After expertise, she's 3 blocks and a heal. Gar is going 3 down plus a shove. Ends up being 5 damage jump. All right, that ends his turn. And he scores 3. He moved the momentum because of mission critical. Reveals Callus. This is not, I mean, Callus here is certainly not awful. He can definitely get by with 0 force. I don't know if he's rolled for a priority left yet. What is the plan here? My gut would be going after Bo-Katan. It looks like 1 shove gets her off the point. I think he only has to go 2 down to shove her off the point. Oh, rolled for priority, and it is the point that has both Gar Saxon and Mando. Yeah, I would have liked to move towards Bo-Katan, and I think he's still going to have to climb up, or at least, maybe shoot her first. But I would have liked to try to take that point from Bo-Katan. Yeah, I think he's realizing in this moment, that exact situation, that there is 2 guys on the point. Yeah, so I think he may have forgotten that Mando was also on that point. There may have been a true line of sight thing going on there. But yeah, he definitely realized. I think he was like, yeah, I should have gone the other way. So we're going to see if Callus can get the wound on Gar Saxon, the secondary battle off. Solid block from Gar Saxon. Looks like it can be 4 blocks. Let's see. I think it's 5 hits and an expertise. I think that is going to fall just short of getting the wound. Oh, it looks like he is getting enough to get the wound. Yeah, he's just taking 4 damage. Mando's just repositioning a little bit. Can't quite see the angle, but I assume it's just for like making challenging shoves. And then Callus is just going to move up onto that point. Yeah, so he ends up. So he gets 1 for it staying on the opponent's side, 1 for mission critical, 1 for the wound. So let's see. So it's going to be the block, which is where Bo-Katan is already at. So this is where, with Mission Critical, things are going to end pretty quickly. I can't see the exact... I think it's at 2 on his side. So if he can get a wound, there's a world where he could score 2 momentum and 4 points. So... yeah, I think there is definitely the potential for him to win this turn. So that's 1 weak way advances. I think Ezra has 1 health. So there's a very reasonable chance for a wound there. The other weak way is kind of dashing out of melee. Weak way attacking Hera. Looks like he must be just outside range 2 of Chopper. Six dice range into Hera. Hera does get her cover dice. Four blocks, 2 heals for Hera. Yeah, so he's just going to deal a damage, then she's going to heal too. So overall net that she removes the damage, but that's not super critical for Nick. This is the one he wants. He wants to get a damage through on Ezra. Ridge is like, Ezra's just a little kid, but Hondo's pirates fighting with Ezra, pretty canon, all things considered. I think he's happy he got a crit. Ezra can't mitigate the crit. Three expertise become 2 hits and a damage. Then a block 3, so it looks like it'll be 2 going through plus a damage. So he's definitely getting the wound. So 4 damage and a shove on Ezra. So that does wound Ezra. He's gaining the momentum now. He was wondering whether or not he was going to gain a force from Riff. So now revenge trigger for Kanan. Or I think what Nick's trying to figure out here is whether or not the revenge trigger would go first, or if the blood in the water trigger would go first. But it's definitely the revenge trigger, because the revenge trigger resolves at the end of the attack. The blood in the water happens at the end of the move action, which is a couple of steps later. So they're just talking this over with the judge. It does sound like in this case, I don't think the judge understood that it wasn't the exact same trigger window and was just relaying like, hey, when it's the same window, the attacking player goes first. 1 expertise is 2 hits. 2 damage, or damage and a strain. Yeah, so it just ends up being 1 damage overall after the heal. Definitely gonna have to double check after the game if I had the interaction wrong. But it doesn't matter too much in this specific situation. I was checking for heals from Kanan. All right, so removes 2 damage from Hera. There's maybe a world where could try to jump and shoot Bo-Katan. Well, looks like I think that's what he's probably going for. No, there's the pirate there. He's probably going after. He's going to punch the pirate there. That positioning of the weak way is really solid because it would have potentially been hard for Rich to be outside of range 2 of the weak way and within range 4 of Bo-Katan. Just one block overall for the weak way. Just 2 damage goes through on the weak way pirates. Okay. Yeah, so score 4 plus mission critical is going to go ahead and wrap up the game. Wow. Whoa, well, that was definitely a longer one. Really dragged that one out to the end. But I think one of the cool parts of this is you definitely get to see some of the highlights of what a Riff list can do. I think Mando's an excellent pairing there. And I think kind of doing this like mixture Riff with Mandos is a really cool concept and something that I think should probably be explored more often. I think Gar Saxon is an absolutely like top tier secondary, and weak ways still need some more love. So I was really happy to get a game with Riff as early as possible in the event. I do want to discuss that just obviously, like I was pointing out a lot of different plays over here. This is the first round of an event. I think Rich, our Spectre player, is just really excited to be in an event. He's here to learn and grow. And so I hope if he watches this that he can feel a little bit like he's got some coaching and suggestions to just help improve his game. We've all been in a situation where we're, just growing with the game. So no disrespect intended to him at all. I just wanted to like throw out a lot of feedback, see, people of all skill levels can kind of learn from the game. And it seemed like in the moment, Nick was doing everything he could to try to like help clarify things, help give encouragement. He was just an absolutely fantastic opponent. I don't release their audio, but it's something that I listen to while I'm recording commentary. So big shout out to both of the players. I really appreciate you letting me record this, and big shout out to Momentous Struggle, who is also streaming. You should definitely swing over and check out their channel so you can see some of the other videos and games and stuff that happened during this particular convention, and the Shatterpoint GT. Absolutely awesome. And so I'm excited to do more of these, just keep, kind of showcasing different matchups and see what we can all learn together and, have a great time with Shatterpoint. So we'll close things out here, and just remember, the most OP thing that you can do is like and subscribe. I love you all. Later, nerds.